Dear brothers and sisters, welcome back to our Saints Stories channel. Today, we embark on a journey into the past, to a time of mystery, danger, and incredible faith. Imagine a dense, ancient forest in the heart of Germania, towering trees, whispering in the wind, the flickering glow of torches illuminating the night, and a crowd of fierce pagan warriors standing in awe, their breath caught in their throats. At the center of it all stands a single man, humble yet fearless. His name, Boniface? Armed not with weapons but with faith, he raises his axe before a massive, sacred oak, a tree dedicated to Thor, the mighty god of thunder. The air is thick with tension. The people believe that the very heavens will strike him down should he dare harm the tree. But Boniface does the unthinkable. With a single decisive strike, he begins his mission. And what happens next will change the course of history forever. Who was this courageous man who dared to stand against an entire belief system? How did he bring the light of Christ to those living in the shadows of fear and superstition? And what can we today learn from his unshakable faith? Long before he became the fearless apostle of Germania, Saint Boniface was just a young boy named Winfrid, born around the year 675 AD in the Kingdom of Wessex, in present-day England. He grew up in a devout Christian family, in a world where faith was not just a belief, but a way of life. From an early age, Winfrid was different. While other children ran through the fields, dreaming of battles and adventure, his heart was drawn to something greater, the mysteries of God. He would listen with wide eyes as monks and priests spoke of Christ, his miracles, and the mission he entrusted to his disciples. The stories of saints and martyrs ignited something deep within him, a longing, a calling. This calling became undeniable when, at the age of 7, he overheard a group of monks visiting his home. They spoke of their work, of the monasteries, where lives were dedicated entirely to prayer, study, and the spreading of the gospel. The young boy's heart burned with desire. He knew then and there he was meant to serve God. Against the hopes of his family, who wished for him to become a noble or a warrior, he entered the monastic life, beginning his education at a monastery in Exeter. His brilliance shone. He was not only intelligent, but disciplined, quickly mastering Latin, theology, and the scriptures. The monks saw something special in him, not just intellect, but wisdom beyond his years. As he grew, so did his reputation. He became a teacher, a scholar, and eventually a priest, preaching and guiding souls. But something troubled him. Though his life was devoted to Christ, his heart yearned for more. He would read the stories of St. Paul, of St. Patrick, of the apostles who left everything behind to bring the gospel to those who had never heard it. And then came the moment that changed everything. By the early 8th century, there was a vast land across the sea, Germania, a place of wild forests and pagan rituals where the people still worshipped their ancient gods. There, countless souls lived in spiritual darkness, never knowing the light of Christ. Many had tried to bring the gospel to these people, but the land was dangerous, the tribes hostile. But Winfrid? He longed for the challenge. His heart was set ablaze with missionary zeal. He knew he was called to go where others feared to tread, and so, leaving behind the safety of his monastery, he set sail for Germania, stepping into the unknown, armed with nothing but faith, courage, and a burning desire to bring Christ to those who had never known him. This journey would not only change his life, but the very course of Christian history. As Winfrid, now a determined missionary, set foot on the untamed lands of Germania, he was met with a world unlike anything he had known. This was a land of dense, shadowy forests, where the towering trees seemed to whisper ancient secrets. Smoke from sacred fires curled into the sky as pagan priests performed their rituals. The people, fierce, strong, and bound by centuries-old traditions, lived under the rule of gods they believed held absolute power over nature and fate. These were the Germanic tribes, a people deeply devoted to their old ways. Their lives revolved around the worship of gods like Woden, Freya, and above all Thor, the god of thunder and war. They believed the gods demanded sacrifices and obedience, and they feared their wrath above all else. For many before him, this land had been a graveyard of missionaries. Preachers had come, only to be chased away, ignored, or even killed. Christianity, to these people, was not just foreign, it was a threat. But Winfried was not deterred. He knew he needed not just courage, but wisdom. His approach was different. He didn't march in demanding change, he listened. He learned their ways, their beliefs, and their fears, and slowly he began to speak of something greater. He preached not a God of anger and vengeance, but a God of love and truth. He spoke of a Savior who gave his life for his people rather than demanding human sacrifices. He told them of the one true God who created the heavens and the earth, not through war, but through his divine will. His words reached the hearts of some, but there was a great obstacle: fear. The people feared Thor above all, believing his wrath would strike them down if they turned away from him. To abandon the gods was to risk famine, storms, and destruction. Winfried knew that words alone were not enough. A great sign was needed, one that would prove, beyond doubt, that the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob was the only true God. And so Winfried, now known as Boniface, set his sights on the greatest stronghold of pagan belief, the sacred oak of Thor. What happened next would shake the very foundations of Germania and mark the beginning of a new chapter in the history of Christianity. It was a cold day in the heart of Germania, and a crowd had gathered. Warriors, women, children, and the solemn-faced pagan priests, their eyes filled with suspicion. Before them stood the greatest symbol of their faith, a towering, ancient tree known as Thor's oak, a tree so sacred that none dared to touch it, lest they invoke the wrath of their mighty god. The air was heavy with tension. The people believed with all their hearts that Thor, god of thunder and war, watched over this oak. For generations, their ancestors had offered sacrifices at its roots, pleading for strength in battle, for bountiful harvests, for protection from the unknown. To harm this tree was to challenge Thor himself, and yet standing in the shadow of this colossal oak, with nothing but an axe in his hands, was a single man, Boniface. His presence was a direct defiance of fear, a challenge to the gods of old. The pagan priests sneered, whispering among themselves, convinced that at any moment a storm would gather and Boniface would be struck down by Thor's wrath. But Boniface was unshaken. He had no doubt, no hesitation, only an unshakable faith in the power of the true and living God. With steady hands, he raised the axe high above his head, and then, in one swift, resounding motion, he struck. The first blow echoed through the forest. The murmurs of the crowd grew into gasps. A second strike, a third, and then a miracle happened. A powerful wind began to howl through the trees. The ground trembled, and before Boniface could lift his axe again, the mighty oak, Thor's oak, began to crack and groan. In a deafening roar of splintering wood, the ancient tree came crashing down. The people stood frozen in shock. Their eyes darted from the fallen tree to the sky above. They waited for Thor's fury, for the thunder to roll, for lightning to strike down the man who had dared to challenge their god. But nothing happened. The skies were silent, the earth was still, and in that moment fear gave way to awe. Boniface turned to the people, his voice calm yet filled with divine authority. "My brothers, see now the power of your God. He does not strike me down, for he has no power at all. There is only one who rules the heavens and the earth, the one who made the trees and the stars, the one who sent his Son to save us, not with a hammer, but with a cross." A great silence followed as the people began to understand. In that moment, many abandoned their idols and turned toward Christ. The once sacred wood of Thor's oak was cut into planks and used to build a church dedicated to Saint Peter, the rock upon which Christ built his church. It was a turning point in history. Paganism in Germania was beginning to fall, and the light of Christ was breaking through. Boniface had not just defeated Thor's oak tree, he had conquered fear itself, and with that victory, a new era of faith began. Years passed, and Boniface's mission bore great fruit. The once hostile lands of Germania saw the rise of churches, monasteries, and Christian communities. Thousands abandoned their pagan gods and embraced the light of Christ. What once seemed an impossible mission had now become a thriving Christian land. But Boniface was not content to rest. Even in his old age, his heart still burned with the zeal of a missionary. There were still souls to be saved, still people who had not heard the gospel. He knew that his mission was not yet complete. And so, at nearly 80 years old, when most would seek rest and comfort, Boniface set out once more, this time to the wild, unconverted lands of Frisia, modern-day Netherlands. It was dangerous territory, a place where many still clung fiercely to their pagan traditions, but Boniface was never one to turn away from danger. On the morning of June 5th, 754 AD, Boniface and his companions gathered on the banks of a river near Docum. A great crowd of converts had come to receive the sacrament of confirmation, to be strengthened in their new faith. The air was filled with prayer and holy anticipation. But just as Boniface prepared to anoint the faithful, a terrible sound broke through the morning calm, the battle cries of warriors. A band of armed raiders stormed into the gathering. Their faces were painted with rage, their weapons gleaming in the sunlight. They were pagans, furious at the spread of Christianity, determined to destroy the messenger of Christ. Boniface's companions urged him to flee, to take cover, to save himself. But he refused. Instead, with unwavering peace, he took the gospel book he had been reading and held it up before him, as if it were a shield. "Lay down your weapons, my children," he said. "Do not resist violence with violence. The day I have long awaited has come. The Lord's will be done." The warriors did not listen. With a brutal swing of their swords, they struck him down, along with 52 of his fellow missionaries. But they had not claimed a victory. They had only sent a saint home to his Lord. His body was later recovered by his followers and taken to the monastery he had founded in Fulda, Germany, where he was buried with honor. His tomb became a place of pilgrimage, a beacon of faith for generations to come. It was not long before the Church recognized the holiness of his life and the power of his witness. Boniface was canonized, forever remembered as the apostle of Germany, the fearless shepherd who had brought Christ to the land of the pagans. His mission had not ended with his death. It continued in the hearts of those who followed in his footsteps. The churches he built, the souls he converted, the faith he had planted, they endured. And today, centuries later, his legacy still shines as a testimony to the power of faith, courage, and the unwavering love of Christ. Boniface had not died in defeat. He had died in victory, the victory of the gospel. Saint Boniface's life was a testament to unshakable faith, fearless evangelization, and total trust in God. He stood before pagan gods and kings, unafraid, because he knew that the power of Christ is greater than anything in this world. Through his courage, countless souls were brought to the truth, and his legacy continues to inspire us today. His story challenges us. Are we willing to stand for our faith even when the world opposes us? Are we ready to bring Christ to those who need him most? If this video inspired you, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and check out our other videos on the lives of the saints. Let's continue sharing the faith and learning from these holy men and women who have gone before us. May God bless you, and see you in our next video.